Welcome to a really special episode of the NERO Show featuring Elliot Schultz, one of the most talented bike riders in Australia.
With some of the most impressive domestic results, we chat through his training techniques and how he gets through some of his massive training blocks.
How Elliot navigates some of the craziest crits and bike races you can think of.
And then we chat through his journey to become a professional cyclist, where he's been on teams over the years and what's up for him in 2025. All right, let's get into it. So I'm Elliot's coach, by the way. I've always had a burning question in my mind, Elliot. One of the riders with an amazing ability to just absorb training load and to somehow always be better only after high periods of training load. And so I wanted to try and pick your brain on an example week when you're really building up. If I look at this, if we bring up this sample week, I put a screenshot in the notes. Like on a week here, like if I look at like that weekend. You know, all 200 plus TSS rides. So how much are you sleeping a night? Do you know?
I reckon 10 hours. I do get 10 hours every night, which is really a key thing.
How are you getting 10 hours? Is that like that's that 9 in bed at 9 or?
Pretty much. Yeah, 9 and then wake up at 7. 7:30.
And you just go straight through. No
Easily.
issues.
Yeah. No, like Steph also gets angry at me all the time about it because she'll like go to bed a little bit early to try and fall asleep and then I'm in and then I'm just 2 seconds gone.
Are you taking any supplements to help sleeping? So any magnesium, anything like that?
Oh yeah, I have magnesium, things like that, but I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't take that purely to enhance my sleep. It's more so just like for my muscles and things like that. That's why I would purposely have magnesium. Well, that sample week you're talking about, like that's pretty recent, so it's burning in my. It's pretty close to my mind.
That was from this. I mean, there's a lot of, you look at that, like there's a lot of riders that would probably think they'd like to train like that, and they'd probably get to the Saturday and it's you're done.
Yeah,
there's no way you're backing up.
I think you can talk about all these like fluff methods and all this kind of stuff, but I think ultimately it comes down to, are you sleeping heaps and are you eating enough? So
perfect. All right, glad you brought that up. So let's dig in then. All right, nutrition. Why don't you talk me through a day? Like, are you tracking calories? Are you tracking grams of carbohydrates?
Nah, I'm really bad with riding in the afternoon. So, and I think that's a Melbourne thing. When I was in Brisbane, then I would always ride early morning, but Melbourne has just got me in a habit of riding in the afternoon. So, I'll wake up, I'll do my work and programming all morning, and then probably around 1 to 2, I'll go out for my training session because in Melbourne in summer it doesn't go dark till 8 p.m. so you can get away with it. So breakfast I'll hit everything. So I have a little bit of fat, a little bit of carbs and protein. So I'll just go easily just toast, a little bit of avocado depending on what time of the period of training it is. And I'll go into that later. So just avocado on toast with 3 eggs. So you get carbs, fats, and proteins. Nutrigrain is also really good as well. There's not much fat in Nutrigrain, which is nice, but low fiber, low fat, but lots of carbs in it. But I wouldn't have that just solely as a breakfast. I just don't think it's very good, I guess, to have all the time. No, I reckon the biggest thing is not what I'm eating. It's just the quantities. Like you literally just have to not even, when you're training that much, you literally have to not even think about how much you're taking in. And you just got to fuel the session correctly. So
let's go for a ride. 2:00. All right, come on. I've had lunch. So are you would you snack on a day like that, or are you just using the meals for calories and carbs?
No, I'd snack, and you just maybe in between, like, I feel like having some more toast, or also I'm a pretty bad sucker for just like your bags of snakes. So
I like
and
Miller
that's
here, the natural convection.
Are you the same? Yeah. It's so
Quality
dangerous. Yeah, I'm really bad for that.
Okay, so that's just a little bump up. Okay, so then you got, like, on this Saturday, the 28th, for example, 4 hours, got zone 4 work at a location. So what's the fueling in ride?
Something I probably did poorly in this preparation, but I have done really good in the past is literally training with what I'm going to race with. So taking in, like, for example, the high carb gels, so taking in those every 30 to 40 minutes, then having the exact race mix you're going to have, so just high carb, high electrolyte mix, and literally just training on that every day and doing the exact same protocol that I'm going to race with in training. And in the past I've done that really well, but to be honest, this preparation I was just To be as stingy as it sounds, I was just really slack on it because of how expensive the nutrition is these days. It's like, it's just really hard to justify how expensive this nutrition is these days. And if you do a 25, 30-hour week of training and think about how many gels and mix and things like that you've got to take in to actually fuel that, that's like a lot of money.
That's interesting. So for nationals in 2024, sorry, a year ago,
yeah,
you were training using what, Morton and SIS and all the gear?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that's just because I had freshly just moved out home, like properly and paying your bills and things like that. But I was only fresh out of it, so you can kind of, it's just like, oh, whatever. But then it's like another, do you know what I mean? Then it's like another year of you're living out of home and there's like, it's a standard life, and you're just like, oh well, why would I spend $50 on a few gels when I can go buy a bag of snakes for $10 and there's more carbohydrates so I can get through my training better. As stingy as it sounds,
no. So that was interesting that you made a comment there that, oh, you were really slack on it this year. So do you mean slack in terms of you feel like it was slack because you weren't using those sport specific products, or you don't feel like you actually hit the carb requirements?
No, I was hitting the carb requirements, but I think I was hitting it with a different type of, like, not different type of carbohydrate, but a different, I guess, percentage breakdown or whatever the hell, whatever fluff is in those snakes. Like, for example, that I'm not going to be racing on. And I think that was a mistake I made, because even though it's sugar or whatever, there has to be some sort of slight difference between having snakes being absorbed in your body compared to a gel.
So did you, when you kind of saying that in a negative sense, did you feel like that negatively impacted the training, or on race day you weren't ready for it?
It negatively affected the race day, because in training you don't have the nerves and things like that, so your body can kind of break down things a little bit easier because it's just one less stress that it's got to go through, and like, you're never nervous when you're going training, so you can kind of take a little bit more time and your body can kind of absorb things a little bit better. Like, you could go training and eat sandwiches and you probably will be fine.
But you didn't use snakes for nationals.
No, I didn't.
Right.
No, but I think that's your point. Yeah, is that you had prepped your body better in the previous nationals because he had trained with his race day footage.
Exactly.
Race day nutrition. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Elliot. I do exactly what, I mean, obviously at a very different level, but I do exactly what you do, in the sense that I train with snakes and sugar water and probably race with 60-70% like proper, quote unquote, nutrition apart from the sugar flask.
And how do you find that split?
Depends on the style of race, but I mean, for me, I would probably find that it works okay. As long as I am getting, and this is the thing, as long as I actually am getting in enough of the carbs using the kind of beta products, like the at-home products, because can often be the challenge, is if you're just doing the sugar and the snakes, maybe you actually aren't getting as much as you would with the race day stuff.
So, I mean, we've obviously chatted offline, but my professional opinion on that whole thing is that I don't think you are necessarily missing out on anything on race day. I think with your experience, you should be fine to just train on, random mix lollies, and that, as long as you're getting the carb targets in, and still be able to rock up on race day and have 3 Morton gels an hour and be fine. I think, we'll cut to the chase. Elliot didn't have the nationals right exactly when he had some gut issues. I think that was highly likely to come from something else and not just the change in training fuel versus racing fuel. I don't really see evidence why that would have thrown it off.
Can we get back to that Saturday? So you've done, was it a 5-hour day, I think?
It was 4 hours.
4-hour day. So can you so let's say you've gone for maybe 80 grams of carbs. Is that sort of where you've landed for that day, or?
Pretty much, like in that type of ballpark, easily.
Okay, so you've come home.
We're talking we're talking about 80 grams of carbs per hour during the ride. Right.
Yep. Okay.
Easily.
So yeah, you stop. You have.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Just sorry. Are you? Because you're saying you've got snakes. My concern is that this is all getting kind of winged, and you're like, I had about 80. Are you exact with, like, I need 3 snakes to get 20 grams, so I need? Are you measuring this?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm literally.
I do.
I'm literally like, this is a hard day. I'm pretty cooked, and I just eat more. If I'm start craving it, then I eat more as well. I seriously, I don't track anything, to be honest.
Snakes are easy to track, ladies and gentlemen. 5 snakes is 20 grams of carbs. Fact.
Geez, that's a lot of snacks per hour.
Fact. Yeah, it is.
That's
But
a lot
where
of.
you obviously.
Well, there's not to put you on the spot, but there's room for improvement. Not tracking everything every day, but at least tracking exactly what the intake is per ride. Because on some of these rides, you should be getting 100 grams of carbs an hour, potentially a little more if you're able to tolerate it. I mean, you are 60 race weight, 62, 63 kilos.
Yeah.
But that's probably something that would have got an extra couple percent in training.
Yeah, I agree. I think early on I probably had taken a lot more notice of to how many grams of carbs it was, and then I probably just got into the routine of being like, okay, that's how many it was, and that was sufficient enough. And then you're kind of like, oh, this is the normal now, so you just keep doing it without really taking in. You guys know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. You kind of got a ball. You know that you kind of it's probably about 90.
5 scoops. It's about that.
Exactly. Like you figured it out once, and then you just never tried to figure it out again.
I just have a follow-up question. Do you stop on these rides?
Yeah, I do, but I try just for a limited amount of time.
So that Saturday ride, did you stop?
Yeah, I would have just refilled. I would have got some just more sugar and some Powerade or Gatorade or something like that.
So it would have been a proper slop stop, 2 hours in, maybe 2.5 hours in, or
I'm not really a slop. I'm not really a slop stop person. Hey,
hang on.
Like
what's he doing on this show? Hang on. Don't tell me you stop at cafes.
I'm bringing it up in training, Pete.
Pretty rarely,
we're gonna,
let's go in. Let's dive in. I want the activity time and a lapse time.
It was 8 hours elapsed for a 4-hour ride. He's slopping around in bakery.
So where are you stopping then?
No, there's how long's this stop? 7 minutes.
That's good. That's under the threshold.
After the efforts are done, 2 hours 45 in.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Perfectly acceptable.
I think was that the really hot day? Oh no, it wasn't that hot.
So just a pure water bottle fill up stop, was it? Or
just boom, get your Gatorades, one in each, grab a new bag of snakes and a Red Bull, depending on how you're feeling, Red Bull or a Coke, and then boom, you go on. And then then same again, like you just get home, carbs and protein, smash as much as you can.
Okay, hold on. Stop.
He's up.
Sorry.
Carbs and what? A
shake?
gram of carbs?
Are we having a shake?
Half a banana? What are we talking about?
I'm just like saying it like that because it's nothing. Like I swear, like my mom and dad would probably do the same thing. Like this is nothing. I'll just have
Are you post ride drink and then get onto the meal, or is it get home and then Steph has dinner ready? What's the usual?
I'd go just protein. Like typically, our ideal world is like a protein smoothie. So you got your fruits and your proteins in that. If not, then just a protein drink with some juice or something like that. So having my protein always with carbs.
So is that a protein powder? Will you be putting a whey protein powder in there?
Yeah, just a plant-based protein.
Okay.
And then having it with a carbohydrate, if that's a sandwich, a white bread sandwich, if that's juice, things like that. And that's just to like get the recovery process started. That's not the substantial meal.
Why plant-based protein? Are you dairy?
Yeah, just can't have dairy.
Okay.
Oh,
interesting. So that's like a pea protein or one of those sort of ones.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah. So I always have my protein with some sort of carbohydrate to help absorb it.
So that's like a shake, and then. Yep. All right. Bowl of Nutrigrain, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, depends how close.
I feel like we could say anything, and Elliot go, could throw that Mars bar, a couple donuts. Look, maybe.
You too. I'm just so not scientific with it, hey, in this type of thing, hey.
No, that's why I wanted.
I think sometimes it's like simple. I just keep it simple. Like it's just otherwise.
Even if it's not scientific, there's still a benefit in being specific, even if it's not scientific.
Ooh,
exactly. Yeah,
that's a good line, Jesse.
Yes. So that's why I want to. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Let's go.
You can make a little rap out of that. Keep going.
Okay, then dinner. You're back to what's the usual dinners?
Yeah, we'll either go like just. Yeah, you can go Mexican, like enchiladas or your pastas, homemade pizzas.
Okay.
Yeah, just things like that. It's super simple.
That day, okay, you got to write. You got 4.5 hours tomorrow and a lot of moderate aerobic work. What's the pre-bed?
Pre-bed
any snackies going on?
Maybe like a little bit of chocolate. Like if I feel like I deserve it, like, and if I'm feeling comfortable with how my weight is pre-race, then because ultimately like that you're trying to remove fat. So if you go to the chocolate, that's quite a bit of fat in there. The old dairy milk. Or if I feel like something sweet, go back to Chris's favorite and just maybe a few snakes or something like that.
Before like a ramp up in training, especially if you, Elliot tends to go AWOL a little bit. There's nothing on, and then suddenly it's it's always a bit. The pressure's always on when he comes back. So and often there is a bit of weight loss that's even there. So like he'll quite often be 60, like a 66, and then at race weight he wants to be 60.
More, even more
up to Miller weight.
That's more like proper off season. I'm talking about. Okay, maybe it's more.
Just fully so it goes AWOL.
But let's say you got to
go AWOL. I'm busy doing stuff.
Let's say it's you're 10 weeks out and you're 66 and you want to be at 62, 63 on race day. So you got like 3 kilos to lose.
Yep.
Maybe even 4. Are you kind of already answered it, but let me see. You have noted multiple times that trying to just pull a bit of the fat out of the diet. Still, you need the carbohydrates to fuel. And then it sounds like you just sort of know the meals and the food you like to eat, and it naturally just comes off. Is that right, or is there any other things you're doing there?
I reckon it's taken a while, but I've gotten it down pretty easily now. Like for myself, like ultimately everyone's different. Everyone's metabolism is different depending on how old you are and everything, and your history of training and all these kind of things play a massive part. Also just like stress as well. So 10 weeks, if I'm fat Elliot, in quotation marks, not fat, but heavy Elliot, say we've got 10 weeks, I'll probably do 5 weeks and not even think about losing weight. I'll literally just start my phase of training and you train hard and the Ks go up and naturally the weight's going to come off just because you're exercising that much. And it's also hard to eat as much as what you're burning. So naturally that type of stuff will come off. Then when I start getting to, I guess, that 5 to 4 weeks before, I'll really just probably like ultimately like my calories are probably even going up because you're training more and more and doing final preps. But it's just really good healthy carbs and just literally just eliminating as much fat as realistically and healthy as possible. Like not being silly or anything like that, but just maybe you're removing a fat source. Like maybe I'm not going to have avocado on my toast anymore. Maybe I'm not going to have any more chocolate. Maybe eliminating. Sometimes I'm bad and I have chicken parmas, even though I'm not meant to have dairy. But sometimes I'll have like chicken parmas with some cheese. So, which doesn't agree with me well at all, but I'll cut that. So I'll remove like those really oily meals.
What about, this is the other one that people kind of always hit on is rest day or recovery day. Are you being really strict on those? How do you manage them? Because sometimes people say, I'm really hungry on the recovery days. There's no low carb Tuesdays, is there, on the easy day?
No, I wouldn't. And I think you guys probably know as well, like when you go into your rest day and you've been training hard, your body is already working overtime because it thinks it's about to perform the day's prize training stimulus again. So your metabolism is already up and just burning a crazy amount of carbs, just trying to go, what the hell has happened to me the last few days?
So like same foods, just less quantity, I guess. And also
pretty much,
because you're not riding as much, you're not having 100 grams of carbs an hour.
Exactly, yeah. So it'd pretty much just be the exact same stuff, just, yeah.
Okay. What's the most toxic thing that you remember you did that you're just like, that was so dumb, that you personally did? Anything?
And it was the biggest I've ever been. So wake up and this is hard. So wake up, try and not eat breakfast for as long as possible. So you get to say like 10 or 11, and you try and hold off as long as possible. Then you have your small breakfast or whatever, go training all day. And then you're like, okay, well, I've skipped lunch because I've been out training all day. Then you get home, you have a protein shake and some watermelon to try and make yourself feel full. Then you have a nap. Then you wake up and then you have a little bit of dinner and you go back to sleep.
Sounds like the coil spec in Utah.
Get a bit of assistance with the nap. Oh, hold on. What?
Weren't you doing like the watermelon, like a watermelon protocol in Utah? It was like all you were eating were watermelons?
No.
No? Sorry. How did I pull that from?
I don't know.
When I was doing this, I was so young. And the only reason why I was doing it is because the older boys that I looked up to who were really good were doing it, and they're like, to be lean, you've got to do this and all this kind of stuff. This snus thing going on at the moment that people are using to try and cut calories when they ride.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
What do you think about that? You're in the scene, man. Not us.
I'm definitely not in the scene.
So is
this like an so it's nicotine for appetite suppressant, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So you just eat less food.
I'm not a fan and not an advocate, but it definitely is a thing.
So are you taking it in a race as a performance thing? Because that's what I thought nicotine was like, a way of like numbing pain. Or is that
the biggest thing that I've seen people having for is they just put it in for training, and I guess it's people who maybe struggle with losing weight and they think this is like the right way to go, but it's just obviously a terrible addiction. So then they're using it whilst training, and I guess whilst at home after training, so they don't eat.
I mean, just such a really ineffective, but maybe just as such a detrimental way to lose weight. I just don't understand. I can't get my head around. Maybe look, especially as an elite, like these are probably elite riders you'd be talking about doing it. I don't get that. I mean, how are you meant to get any fitness up?
I don't know, but I think it is if you are doing that, you probably just need to get a little bit more busier, just like on your off, like when you're not off the bike, just like go do something instead of laying around with snus in your mouth and just, you know what I mean? Like far out.
All right, let's just pause real quick to have a quick chat about Silka, who are supporting today's episode, and they've got some distribution updates, Jesse, that they'd like to tell everyone about.
Yeah, this is a big one. So they just opened a warehouse in Australia, which means Silka have warehouses in the UK, Australia, the Netherlands for all of the EU, US, and Canada. So if you're in any of those locations, the shipping cost is faster, cheaper, and so they're getting the products out to you direct to consumer. So that's a pretty big update from Silka. It takes a lot of logistics to get that set up.
And apart from distribution, why that's actually cool is, so that thing behind me, the chain waxing system, which is a bit of cycling technology that I can use, which is extraordinary given my history in these things. But when you buy it, and you buy it directly from their warehouse now, it ships with an AU plug, an Australian plug, which I know that might sound kind of, oh, well, of course it would, but now that it's coming directly from the warehouse in Australia, it's going to ship much quicker, and it will ship, obviously, with the correct attachments.
Now, if you're lucky enough to be listening to this episode before the 21st of January, that means the Silka semi-annual sale is still on. So they've got up to 50% off all their products. Their main best sellers, like the Super Secret Train Lube that I've been using, that's 18% off right now. So if you're listening to this, if you're lucky to be getting in early, their sale will still be running. So go and check that out. Now, we do have a code as part of the promotion with Silka. The code is NERO Show, all in capitals. And up until the 20th, while the semi-annual sale's running, if you include what Chris just chatted about, which is the Silta Ultimate Chain Wax System, that'll then give you free shipping, that code. After the 20th, that NERO Show code will be getting you 15% off your order. So just keep that in mind. If you are ordering after the 20th, use code NERO Show and you get 15% off.
We'll be following that up in the next couple of weeks with some of the products that they've got online that we both use. But for now, a big thanks to Silka for supporting today's episode. And don't forget the code NERO Show in checkout. Do you do any specific warm-up before, if you've got an interval set, will you do anything specific, or is your ride out to wherever you're doing your intervals part of essentially your warm-up?
Where I live at the moment, it takes quite a while to get out. Like, it's at least a 30-minute ride out to anywhere remotely where I can perform any sort of interval. So by then it's plenty. So I don't do any sort of specific warm-up. And you guys probably know, every day you probably don't want to go through a whole routine of warm-ups on the road. And it just logistically is a bit of a nightmare, I guess, because you got your commute out to wherever you're going, you got lights and cars, and you're trying to do your warm-up protocol, and then you want to get out to where you're going to do your efforts, and then do your efforts. And it's just I feel like it's not like swimming, where it's really a technique-based sport and you really need to go through your drills, because it's literally like playing golf and having your technique down pat and muscle memory and things like that. Same for running as well, like you're doing your biomechanics and things like that to have an efficient session.
What about if you're carrying like a lot of load, and say you've got on the bike, the legs feel heavy, and you know you've got 4x8 or something that day, you're like, fuck, that first one's going to be absolutely just horrible. Like, is it just mentally you're just like, oh, suck it up, just do the first 8, or will you try and do some like almost like opener to get that first one done?
Once again, like nothing specific, but I reckon you unintentionally on the way out, you might spin the legs a little bit harder up a street, or you know what I mean, you might sprint a little bit harder out of the lights just to wake up, but most of the time it's just like, let's just put the energy into getting the session done. But you guys, what do you guys do? Like,
we're
do you
normally
think you
on
need
the
a
same.
warm-up?
So if I ride into Centennial Park, I'll use that ride in as a thing. But the reason I put that in is because I was down south during last week, and like the first climb I have is like 6Ks away. It's like, it's too close, and I'm getting to the base of the climb, and I was going to do 8-minute efforts, and I got to the base of it. I've been riding for 13 minutes. I'm like, well, this is going to suck, and it did suck. And I was like, I was wondering, like,
How many 8?
4.
Like in those situations, I just undershoot the power target for the
Yeah,
first
which is
one.
what
It's
I
like a
did.
semi warm-up opener on the first one anyway.
But then, like, I got to the end of the second one, I was still, I wasn't probably even warm then at that point.
Okay.
But yes.
Yeah, well, Chris is old. He needs probably 3 hours to get one.
Fact. That is a fact, as you know. So I actually, that was one of the ones, and the other one in the week, what I did is I did a sprint. I did like a sprint, and I actually think that helped. I don't know whether it was just mentally or what, but I was like, oh, I'm warm now. Done a sprint. Let's go.
One single sprint.
One single sprint.
For how long?
5-6 seconds.
Oh gosh,
It's probably, but I think like for racing sake as well, it's probably not even a bad habit to try and get used to what you're saying is being able to fire earlier as well. Like you can for sure train that.
I've had this argument with you before. You disagree with me.
What on what?
That to try to somehow be able to perform with an effort that's really early on in a race, to just start your efforts quite quickly as well in training. Whereas I think you were always like, no, try and maximize the actual training effort.
I think I don't think there's some physiological adaptation that you're getting by doing efforts not warmed up that you aren't getting if you do them warmed up. I think it's more of there'd be more of a mental acclimation as opposed to something physical.
I feel like as well, like surely, I don't know the scientific reasoning to this, but surely, like, you know how people are like, oh, I'm getting older, so it takes me a bit longer to warm up. Like, is that even a thing? Like, you're just like,
yes,
surely
it's got to be. Like,
but what's your body doing differently to a 25-year-old? Jesse?
Yeah. Question.
From a 50-year-old to a 25-year-old, like your blood's moving slower,
just your
or
blood's
like
thicker and slower, and muscles are like just giving up. I don't know.
Are you far? Is it a like an energy contribution? Like your anaerobic pathways aren't as good as a young person. You're relying more on the
heart doesn't want to get up.
Aerobic,
heart
twitch pathways.
Heart rate definitely is slower
and
to get.
So you can't rely on that to contribute as much power as an 18-year-old. And so it does literally take you longer to warm up because the aerobic pathways take time to get going. The anaerobic ones don't take as long. So I mean, is that a shift that happens as you get older? I think it is. That's probably something. I'm just curious. Since I've been coaching, I started coaching you in the lead into 2024 season. Are there any things that you think you've improved on now since I've started coaching you that you probably weren't doing before? Or is it mostly sort of the same work?
I reckon the biggest thing is the conditioning work that I had never done conditioning work, like proper race simulations and things like that. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then ultimately, like these races that you're trying to be good at, you need to be good in the final 4, the 4th hour or the 5th hour. And if you go out and you do 5x5 or some 20-minute efforts and things like that in the front to middle of the ride, and then you do the rest of the ride endurance, then you kind of never learn to have any sort of decent fatigue resistance. So then you go to a race and then all of a sudden you've been riding around for 4 hours, and then all of a sudden it's time to go full gas at the end of it, but you've never done that before. So I think that's a big thing.
And I rate you as one of the best bike handlers positioners that I know. and probably domestically as well. And I think you have a triathlon background. So I was always curious, how the hell did you get so good at racing your bike? Is it just natural, or are there things you did to improve it? I would love to know, because I need some help in that department too.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I actually came from a pretty interesting background, because when I was about 4, I started racing motorbikes. So that's probably where I got that from, and I did that for like 10 years.
Okay, so you okay, we're just coming off the Australian Road National. So you're in the crit there. You're probably 10 kilos lighter than anyone else that's around you. And then watching the live stream, you're kind of floating through on the back, straight on the wheel. You're always dead on the wheel. Like, what are you thinking about when the race starts? Is it all just totally innate in you? You don't even really realize you're doing it? Or do you have a process that you work through?
I guess a part of you kind of goes on like autopilot a little bit, but there's always, like, before the race, you're like, okay, well, this course is super technical. We've got like 6 or 7 corners. They're pretty much 100 meters at most, like, per straight. So it's like really short turns, things like that. And I'm like, well, obviously it's going to be absolute chaos. So your first thought is, okay, I need to be at the front. And yeah, actually you learn pretty quickly if you find yourself starting to drift a little bit too far back. You're like, oh, well, the elastic band is insane. Like, people are sprinting full gas out of the corner, and you're going into the corner just watching them take off, and you're still on your brakes.
Okay, so just on that then, like, when that happens, right, you're mid-pack and you go, oh shit, this is getting really stretched out. I need to move up. You've made that decision, and you've got the fitness that you feel you're not already at max heart rate. You feel like you have some matches to burn, right? What are you doing? Where are you moving up? How are you doing it?
Well, on the weekend in particular, I guess an easy answer, and probably an annoying answer, is like you go straight for the dive bomb.
Okay.
I guess that's
there it is.
Like,
there we go. We got there in the end.
That's as annoying as it is. Obviously, it's a pretty easy and cheap way to get to the front. You obviously don't make too many friends doing it, so you try not to do it. You don't do it. You guys know you don't do it every corner, just because otherwise you're going to be that guy that's the dive bomber. So you don't
there's
want that
polite
title.
dive bomb, and then
Exactly,
there's an appropriate dive bomb.
So what's the Elliot dive bomb? Can I explain it what I think, and then you can correct me? So when you say dive bomb, I'm thinking, okay, the slowest corner where it gets the most stretched out is probably where you have room to make up ground. And so where you would usually be starting to slow down and stay in the draft, go into that corner, you move out into the wind, do a bit of a sprint, basically ride around people onto the inside of the corner, and then it's just I guess outside foot down and just try and squeeze in?
Pretty much. I guess, like you're saying, in my head, the one that makes most sense is one that's coming from like a really high speed. So you're already coming at, I guess, a high speed straight into a tight corner, I guess, where you're carrying lots of momentum. And then all of a sudden, everybody's on the brakes really hard. And then you're kind of essentially late braking and trying to get on the inside of everybody. So in my head, that's probably the one that makes the most sense. And that was for the weekend as well. The 2 spots where you could only move up was coming out of the back straight, where it was completely downhill into like a sharp right-hand turn. So then that's where people were making up positions because it was really, really fast and everybody's on the brakes. So then that's your chance to move up. And then coming out of the start-finish corner, because same again, everybody's sprinting through the start-finish line, and then it's a hard left-hander. So you're, essentially on the brakes late and trying to make an advantage that way.
I'm trying to learn the art of the dive bomb. Okay, so I think I get it. I know where you're doing it. It's on the higher speed sections where everyone's then going to have to slow down to turn the corner.
Yep.
So you move out, you're coming with speed, you're committed to the dive bomb. How do you actually get back in line and through the corner? Is there
There's so many different things. Like, there's so many ways you could do it. You could A, force yourself in. B, maybe, like, to be honest, lots of the guys that we're racing, we've been racing each other for a really long time. So I guess maybe one of the guys who I'm trying to get in front of, he's like, okay, well, Elliot's not going to get dropped, so I'll happily let him in. Where maybe if it was somebody they didn't know about, and they were a little bit more hesitant to let them in because, like, oh, maybe this guy could drop the wheel and then I'm going to get dropped out of this really hard race.
So you're picking your dive bomb targets, are you, Elliot? You're spotting the wheel of someone who you think's going to let you in.
Well, essentially, yeah. Like on the weekend, you're like, I'm not going to go dive bomb Wellsford or something like that in the like.
Oh, well, we'll get there. I got questions that I'm more. If I'm in that race, I'm probably getting dive bomb because I don't have the confidence to do the dive bombing, and then suddenly I'm in the back half and can't move up because I can't do that maneuver. So would you say if someone's maybe doing some racing, it's just a matter of committing to it and just trying it out?
Is this like, are we promoting is it Dive Bomb 2025?
They said I could do it on the NERO show. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that's funny. I reckon if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it. There's a smart way to do it, and that like it's not like you're just going in all hell blaze and just I'm gonna just smash into this corner and whatever happens, and I'm gonna make up 20 positions. You gotta have like a feel for the bunch, and if when you start moving up, if you're like, oh, it's starting to close off a little bit, obviously I'm not gonna commit to it, and you kind of find your way back into your place. But yeah.
Okay. So you've done the dive bomb. I've been calling it a dive bomb. It's just it's an easy way to make up a few spots, or the only really way to make up a few spots aside doing 1,000 watts in the wind. So it's not necessarily sweeping in at twice everyone's speed and taking out someone's front wheel, just to put it like that. But let's say, okay, you're in position, you're in the top third, you're floating around. What about staying up there? Because that's the other thing. You can dive bomb, you can move up. How do you stop yourself just getting swamped and just continually floating back in the bunch? Any tips?
I reckon the biggest thing is when you get comfortable in that position, you're like, all right, I've found myself in this really nice position, is when it's pretty much the beginning of the end, because ultimately the entire everybody's trying to get to the front. So a good way to think about it is always subconsciously always try and keep moving forward a little bit, because especially in big pelotons as well, and you'll find yourself in that washing machine of like the big peloton, and you'll like go ham smash, get to the front, and you're like, all right, I'm in position. And then all of a sudden you're drifting back. And it's always when you like get comfortable in that position is when you will ultimately start drifting back again. So it's always just like chipping away and trying to think, okay, maybe I'm going to move up one more spot and things like that. And if you get up to that 1/3, then maybe as you go along, maybe you move up one more wheel. And if you see people trying to fight to get in front of you again, then just, I guess.
Yeah, so they're constantly moving. But you're saying on some of the harder parts of the course, like some of the uphills, that you would strategically drop back a little bit and to save some energy. So are you then doing that knowing that you have the ability to move back up? Because I think Chris kind of struggles with that a bit, especially at Heffron, he's all good top 5 wheels where it's kind of single file.
Yep.
And also all good in the back third, but there's that like middle pack where it's kind of bar to bar that he's said multiple times, like I'm in there and suddenly then I'm at the back of it and then I'm in the single file zone at the back.
You get into the front, Chris, and being like, oh, I'm comfy here, and then just trying to just sit put.
It's like this constant balance of yes, basically trying to get to the front, and in that particular dynamic that you're talking about, where it's a kind of handicap race. So getting to the front also means pulling turns and that kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
But then there's this almost like this perfect little lounge chair that sits about 10 wheels behind you that I just can't sit in, which is like the perfect just drives you along to the finish line. And it's like as soon as it becomes that bar to bar.
The one Chris mentioned to me was you get to sort of one lap to go and everyone that's been sitting on decides they want to move up. And then unless you're top 3 wheels where you're probably eating some wind, you're then having to try and match 10 other guys that want to be in that 5th wheel spot.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that scenario? Do you just have to eat some wind to move back up or stick the elbows out?
I reckon it's the sprint finishes. Hey, it is so dangerous, like you guys know. And unfortunately, I think you just gotta. It just takes like a unique person just to not you're not even thinking about crashing. You're just you kind of just got to like send it a little bit. Unfortunately, especially in those sprint finishes, it's different when you're trying to I guess right position in a road race or something like that, or right position early on in a crit. But when it's coming to, like you're saying, a Heffron last lap, like you guys are racing really quality bike riders, and I'm sure people are willing to lie themselves on the ground for $100 or $200 to, do you know what I mean? So
But I think that's
there's the sprint part, but there's the other thing, and I probably didn't ask this of you well enough, but it's actually, I get my sort of doors blown off in the last kind of half lap or so, because I find myself panicking and getting myself far too close to the front. And so I might be like the first wheel behind I'm like the first wheel behind the lead out guy, and then he swings off, and then the swamp happens. So I think to myself, I'm fit enough to be up there, but I just can't.
I think there's a good video from that sums this up really well from this year. But also I did ultimately crash in this race because the seas parted and it wasn't good. But pretty much, I'll have to send it to you, Chris, so you can play it in the B-roll. But pretty much, it's exactly what I was describing. And you kind of just find yourself your lead out, and you just trust that it's going to find its way to the front. And ultimately, in this one specific video, we like take this crazy right-hander, and because you're so deep in the middle of the group, and you're doing 60 Ks now, and you can't see what's going on, and there's a crash, I guess, in the front part of the bunch, and all of a sudden, because you've committed to this, I'm going to be in the middle of the bunch, 60 Ks an hour, not being able to see where I'm going, and hopefully going to farm myself to the front eventually. All of a sudden, the seas part, and there's this bikes, and you just got nowhere to go. So that's the risk as well with the sprint finishes. But it's also why I'm also not a pure sprinter as well, as I can't step out to the side and just go for it myself.
It's not really, I get the situation. I'm really just pushing you because I'm hoping that there's some, oh no, I look 2 wheels ahead and it changed my life. Or, I ride with my left elbow at 90 degrees and then that allowed me to hold the wheel. Obviously that's not the case.
I would argue you actually have quite bad awareness around you on the bike. Just full stop.
Okay, good.
Like,
here we go. Hot take,
yeah. I mean, he does. Like,
tell us how you really feel, Chris.
When he's doing training efforts and stuff, he's like so in the zone. He's like completely tunnel visioned. Like, there's just no interrupting the training, the mindset at the moment. And I do think he takes that a bit into racing sometimes, and sometimes doesn't have enough awareness around him, what's happening.
Yeah, should I be looking around? Because you hear different advice. You hear, no, you got to look at the wheel in front. Don't look back because you'll clash wheels or whatever. Are you looking left, right, scanning around, or are you really just trying to stick on the wheel and stop other people from taking it?
Oh, I'm probably bad at not looking behind. I don't really do that, but I think there actually is a really good time and place for it. Like perfect example, Welsford did it perfectly in that Nationals on the weekend. Like he let out from half lap to go. And he was constantly looking behind him, seeing if somebody was going to jump him. But nobody did. So in that instance, it's really good. But in terms of like, if you're in the bunch, like I would say just completely always looking forward and focusing on the wheels in front of you.
Yeah, I'm not saying looking. I'm just, don't you reckon you can sense, you get a sense of what's happening around you quite well?
Yeah.
And you can sense the surge is company, or you can sense there's someone coming past you. And that would be my, criticism of Coyle. It's just like, 450 watts straight ahead. Deal with it.
Is that from your rowing? Because you just like, Jesse row, Jesse power. Like, you know what I mean? Just,
I like that take.
Just so used to being in your zone. Because you can kind of see like all these type of things stem from, I guess, what people were doing as kids. Like you can kind of see, I guess, triathletes are really bad for this, of just wasting so much energy just purely because that's all they've really done as a kid. And it took me a while to learn that as well. When I transitioned from triathlons, and the triathletes, they just go power, power, power. They always find themselves always rolling turns. Maybe their bunch skills aren't very good. And then same for the rowers as well. It's also gets caught into I'm just like Hulk smash kind of thing.
I think it's maybe it's more my riding style. I don't want to be constantly looking around, jumping, re-accelerating. I would rather just have it be a little steadier and then just launch one big sprint.
And it works to your advantage in certain race conditions as well, because the fact you're not distracted with what's going around you, you tend to almost race your own race, and that can work for you as well. So yeah, it is a little bit of both for sure.
Elliot was actually probably one of the hardest, not hardest, I say probably the most challenging coaching scenarios that I've had. Of like, this kid contacts you, like, oh, I'm looking to get started coaching, and I'm trying to, last year's my next year to go pro. I need to get results, and the first thing is nationals. and you're like, okay, I've seen some of your results. I don't really know you at all. I don't know how you respond to training. I don't know any of your sessions. I think when did we get started was maybe October, September-ish?
Nah, earlier than that.
A bit earlier?
Yeah.
When did you actually start training?
Probably 8
maybe
weeks
it
before.
was maybe it was September, October. And that's a lot of pressure. That's heaps of pressure. And I remember it was
on yourself.
Oh, pressure on me. Yeah,
No, you should never. It's never pressure on you. Like if there's a performance, like I hate putting it on a coach or even like I just think it's not good to like the coach needs to take some sort of accountability, but also like, you can't really recreate the wheel. And do you know what I mean? There's ultimately you need to take the athlete needs to take some sort of accountability. And if you've done training in hours and things like that, it's
it is. But also, if you have an athlete that has potential and can do well, it's on the coach to get the most out of them, and that's very pressure. I remember there was like a kind of a learning process too. I don't know if maybe you don't want me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. It's like I think it got to maybe.
Oh yeah.
So nationals is January. It got to like September, October, and he'd been kind of doing maybe like half the training. And my general approach is sort of I set the training and like I'm happy to explain it, and then it's like on the rider to go out and do it. It's like you're trying to go pro, and I'm not here to tell you to go ride your bike. It's kind of what you're trying to do. But we kind of got to like September, October, and it was sort of head wasn't really in it. There's obviously sports psychology comes into it. But I mean, credit to Elliot. He messaged me and he's like, I'm kind of struggling. Like I really need a bit of a kick up the butt, like to get out. Yeah, I'm like, okay, all right. So like my job's kind of changed. Other training's in there, and then that literally from like towards the end of 2023, I just message him every day. Like, I hope you're out riding now. On your bike.
Which you shouldn't need to do.
I don't care. I want green boxes. I don't care what you've worked. If you want a podium or win nationals, work needs to get done.
Let's talk about it then. So what was getting you out the door, Elliot? Is it the dream? Is it the dream of being a pro? Was it the fact that Jesse would like message you? Like, what was the driving force 4 days into a deep, week training block every day? Because
it's always like this fight to get a world tour contract, and when you get so close, and then a setback, close setback, and it's just like over years and years of this, you just feel like you're beating a dead horse in a way. So that's why it took so long to get into gears, because it's like, oh, like, do I even want to do this anymore kind of thing? And you have other priorities in life, and then like you have a business, and then you have other stuff going on, like your partner, and you're enjoying those type of things in life. And that was the main battle of just going, oh, like, do I even want to do this? And then when it gets to that point, you're like, okay, well, I still really want to win. And then it's like, okay, now I've just got to get it done.
How many close calls have you had, do you think, to get that contract?
Close call. I've had a few close, like probably when was it in Inform? 2020. Well, it all started with 2019, when I was in AG2R. That was obviously a close call. Then we went into COVID. But
so what's that? You're on AG2R. Is that like a development team or something?
Yeah. So yeah, essentially in 2018, I went to France as a junior, and I was racing for a French junior team over there.
And did you just go over there, like your parents like helped you out to go race, or?
Well, actually, the year before that as well, I went to France. Steve Rooney, he took me over, who is a really nice friend of mine, and he introduced me to some of his friends who were French, and I'm still friends with these guys to this day. And Julian and Thomas, they just pretty much helped me along the way. Julian rode for AG2R back in the day. Thomas rode for Shimano with like Marcel Kittel and things like that.
So how old are you on that year? You're
I would have been 17.
17. Okay. And how long
17.
how long was the trip over there for?
The first one was 2 months.
Okay. So it's flyover.
Yep.
And then you're kind of staying with essentially family, friends, mates.
Pretty much, yeah. And like we went to go see the Tour de France and go on a holiday as well and things like that.
Okay.
Then the following year, I raced for this French junior team. So over there, like the junior teams, kind of like club teams, anyways.
How'd you get on that?
Julian and Thomas, because they live in Chambéry, the area, they just helped me get onto it. But it's not like it's signing a contract or anything like that. It's just like going to a club junior team and there you go racing.
So what if you didn't know Julian and Thomas? I don't know Julian and Thomas. I'm 17. She's a French couple months with a few Euro races would be nice. What do I do?
I know I get this all the time, and I think that's the hard thing about being Australian. There's this gap of this unknown. But if you're a junior rider, I think you got to come over first there's a few ways. Come over by yourself, and you got to do it yourself first, and just go to these Belgium club races and network, because ultimately you've got to know somebody in some way to get to where you're going. So doing it yourself and doing it the hard way and networking yourself.
So this is so you find where you want to stay. You sort of look up the calendar, try and find what the calendar is, the race calendar, what's on and what months.
Because the only reason why I knew Julian and Thomas is because I actually went there the year before and met them. So if I never did that, then I would have been in the exact same position that any other junior would be in. So you got to network, and you've got to know somebody to who is willing to give you a hand. If you can't do that, then ultimately you just got to revert to the old emailing and just trying to contact as many people as you can, and just cold emailing people and cold messaging. And
okay, so that's just you trying to go and just do a few races. You get an idea. I was always curious when these sort of scouts, there's these people at these crits and they're looking for the young riders, whether that's for a development team, under 23, whatever it is. You always see this story of they took him for testing, best testing they've seen. Is that a thing? Are they looking for numbers? Are they doing lab testing, or is it just results? And then do they literally come up and just give you a tap on the shoulder and your business card?
I don't know. It's weird. Hey, like it's just, I reckon everyone's a little bit different. I might not be in the right clique, but it's definitely not like on the movies where you've got the scouts in the corner with the clipboard watching the race, and like it's definitely not like that. It's definitely a thing where like teams are taking people's training peaks to look at data and all this kind of stuff. I know like teams have probably gone a little bit of trouble of just like doing this purely to farm data and to farm like training numbers and using it as a way to like improve like databases and like, you know what I mean? Like literally hoarding a massive, if you get somebody's training peaks account, like you have so much data in there, like it, and so many different like coaching methods and things like that. It's a pretty valuable piece of property, I think.
So is that a thing that you would be asked, can I have the login to your training peaks?
Pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
We did that what was that? A few months ago.
Who are you giving access to? Like Claude at Claude at AG2R? Like who? Hang on.
You just pretty much give me access to a team who potentially is interested, and then they just go through. Well, that's what Lantern, I'm not saying he does this specifically, but he would go through and look at someone's data and run it through their own system and what they think is correct and not good or are potentially suitable.
I just think it's absolutely bizarre. People's power meters are garbage. Imagine traipsing through someone's training peaks, and have they even done max efforts over the durations you're looking for? I just find it really weird. Like, is it even accurate?
Could you just scale up your aciomas?
Literally. Yeah. I've just been running it at plus 5% all season.
No, here's the other thing. You guys will like this one. Here's the thing, like people will pick and choose, like these teams will pick and choose what power meter they think suitable to go off. Like they'll be like, oh, what power meter have you got? And you could be like, oh, Quark, no, your power's not correct. Oh, I got a 4. No good, that's not correct. Oh, I got a Shimano. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, nice. That's like, do you know what I mean? It's just all over the place.
Have you ever been invited for testing with a team?
I did a power protocol test like years ago where I went and did a sprint, a 5 and a 20-minute test.
In your own terrain?
No, with three other people.
In Australia?
No, that was in France. And so other than that, no.
Who was running that? What was that about?
That was for AG12.
And have you ever been told, oh, Elliot, we're really close to signing you, but if you just got 10 more watts on your 5 minutes?
Nah, it's always you have a 1.5 or something like that.
Okay, so it is still results based, or at least that's the excuse you get.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much the uphill battle that I'm fighting at the moment. But which I can also understand as well. Like I haven't got a ton of wins, which a team is trying to chase. But also like there's also the argument it's hard to get opportunities the last few years with just the gap and also the access to racing overseas. And also just bad luck as well. The times that I've gone to Europe recently, I've either performed really, really well or then I've had a crash, so I haven't been able to complete whatever races are coming up.
Right. So for those that don't really know, so you go to the AG2R as a junior, get on that team, you don't get the results, so then you kind of back to a Conti level, still doing some UCI races, and you do that Conti team non-pro, paying for everything for 2020, 21, 22, 23, and 24.
Yep.
Your cycling career has taken a turn for 2025, but is there anything to note in that sort of 2020 to 2024 that really stands out, or is it really just sort of trying to get in form, trying to get some results? You don't really get any nibbles and try again the next year?
Like, that's what I mean. Like, that's why it's so hard, is because it's with that type of thing, you try and cram all your results, all your races into like this 3-month block where like you go overseas with Bridgelane, and we've got 2 or 3 months to really make the most of it. And maybe you can do 10 to 15 races, and you've got to try and win, and it's an expensive thing to do, and you put all this effort to try and just cram all these results into this short amount of time, which is so hard because if you're in a European Conti team, then you've got 50 to 60 chances, and then essentially if you can jag 1 or 2 results in 50 to 60 chances.
That's what I'm curious about 2024. What happened last year? Because you go to Australian Nationals, which is, does a result at Nationals mean anything? Good question. You get 4th.
No, it doesn't mean anything. It does, but apparently it doesn't.
First non-pro, so 3 Jayco riders and then Elliot Schultz. So you get 4th there. Great result. Nice work. You do have a UCI, so you got a New Zealand Cycle Classic, which is at 0.2. Second on GC. That's a good result, isn't it? Good result. Then you go to Europe. You get a top 10 in a fairly big race in a sprint, and then you crash. Right, and then so that's your season. So is that just not, because you're signed with a rider an agency, right? That kind of should be looking for contracts for you. So you're saying that 4th at Nationals, so the first non-professional, and then 2nd overall New Zealand Cycle Classic, with your history, that's not really results that is good enough to get you on a team. Yeah.
So with all those results, pretty much had no conversations with any pro teams or anything like that, any World Tour teams. And then towards the end of that, when I was in Europe and got the top 10, then things were starting to happen. And then as soon as the crash happened, it was just done, because it was like, oh well, you've only done X amount of race days this year. It's not really much, and you can't complete the rest of your stint because you've got like these broken bones. And it's so hard because there's so many guys in the exact same position as me who are just as good, that have gotten wins and things like that, and can completed the season, that like they just go ahead.
But that's not quite the end of the story, because then 2025 something does pop up, because you are what I would consider to be a professional bike racer now. So you get on Japanese team, Victory Hiroshima. How does that come about?
Well, pretty much I got a message just saying,
DM?
A DM, yeah, saying,
yep.
Like, really like what you've done. I'm heading across to this team. Would you, as a manager, would you like to come with me? And then I was just like, oh yeah, like.
So this didn't come through the agent. This was through a contact at the team.
Correct. And then where the agent, I guess, comes into play in this circumstance was just, I guess, literally looking over the contract and making sure that you're not getting anything that's gonna I guess, stitch you up and things like
And
that.
they-
And just making sure.
Hold on, so they
Hang
clip.
on, taking his cut.
Do
Hang on.
they clip the ticket there? What's the?
Nah, he's not clipping the ticket.
So, oh, well, that's good of them actually. So, did you know this manager, this person that contacted you? Was they familiar with you already, or was this out of the blue?
Yeah, it was completely out of the blue. So
do you know who did someone pass them your name, or was this just someone that's actually pretty switched on because they got in a pretty
honestly,
good deal?
I have no idea. No idea, honestly. But I'll happily take it. But at that stage as well, it's hard, because you like put so much effort into, and this goes exactly back to when we're talking earlier, Jess, and you're like, oh, trying to like kick me into gear kind of thing. And that I have never actually been like that in the past. Like I had always been like perfect, like all year round perfect. But it's probably only been like just like the last like 2 years where I had kind of been like that a little bit, because it's kind of, you're like, fire, I've put so much effort into it and I'm trying so hard, but I have all these setbacks. And especially 2 years ago when I had a really bad crash where I was in hospital for 3 months and nearly died. That was probably like the start of it, where I was like, fire out, like what am I doing kind of thing.
So are you paid on this team? What's the setup?
Luckily I am, which would be really nice.
Okay.
I probably don't know how much I can talk about it, to be honest, into all the details.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really nice. Like I have said for ages now, like I would love to race for a Japanese team. And especially this team as well, like it has a really nice history. Like Ben Dyble's on the team this year and he's been on there for a few years, and he's arguably probably the best Australian who's ever raced on the Asian circuit. Like he has so many insane results, and he's also raced the Tour de France and things like that. So I'm super keen to be his teammate and learn from him.
So will this be like a fly in, fly out thing where you? Okay.
Well, essentially, yeah. So I'll go over. So stay here. I'll do Oceanias. I'll go over in April and I'll do 2 or 3 months there and then race, and then I'll come home for a little bit, and then I'll go back overseas for another 2 or 3 months.
Okay, so you'll go over, do your. I noted that they did the Tour de Kamano, the Tour of Japan, and then a couple of races in Singapore, I think, after that, and then that's sort of your block of racing then, where you'll be based in Japan and looked after in Japan, and then receiving a salary, I assume.
Exactly, yeah. And then they
sick.
also have like a national series as well there, which is really big for them as well, which I'm pretty keen to do as well. But yeah, the Asian scene kind of died off over the COVID period because you literally couldn't go there. But before that, like it was like booming. It was really good, and people would make genuine livings out of it, and really good livings. So it's nice that has actually ramped up a lot last year. Like all the races have come back. You can race in China and all the Asian countries and things like that.
So what is this year then? Is this now, okay, you're getting some money coming in, you're not like bleeding cash every year. Is this it then? It's kind of get as many results as possible, maybe try bump your salary up 2026? Or is this just go hell for leather 2025 and see how many results you can get and either go to Europe?
It's definitely, for me, it's definitely not a money thing. I'm not on a like you're not on a Pogacar or anything like that. So it's, do you know what I mean? Like like when it comes to that side, I think like I have like a nice coaching business, which is probably my biggest priority. And just growing that, because that's also something I've been passionate about since like 6 years ago when I started. But for the Asian racing this year, it's kind of, I'm actually looking forward to just being in a team and going racing without there needing to be any, I need to win at all costs because I need to get a world tour team. Like I just want to go race for a really nice team, which this team is, and it's a good culture and they look after you, and we go do some really good races and we just try and win as a team. And that's ultimately like what I'm looking forward to, is just try and get as many results with them as I can and have a new experience. And if I can win heaps and something better and happens and I get onto a world tour team, then that's awesome. But also like I'm also just focusing on trying to do as good as a job as I can for this team. Like, because in the past, well, like with development teams and things like that, is this, and also being on a team that's like so many guys are just burning to become world tour. Like you're just not. It's like you you go to a race and everyone's just trying to win.
100%. Yeah. And whereas this team is essentially a group of professionals who know their place, and they're not fighting for the next big thing as such. I mean, maybe there might be a bit of vibe towards the end of the season about who's getting contracts for the next year, and that might take over a bit. But yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. All right, I think we might be done, Jesse.
Yeah, I think that's about all. That's everything I wanted to pick from Elliot's brain.
Thank you very much for your time, Elliot. Good luck this
Sorry,
year.
guys. I wasn't ready to peak early, but you've made me.
No, that's awesome. Good luck this year. We will be watching. Yeah, hopefully you snag a win in the Tour of Japan.
Thanks, guys. Fingers crossed.